What it do? Welcome to another new episode of Locked On Bucks. On the second night of a back-to-back, the Bucks had to hold on to defeat the Nets 115 to 108. Dame time was in effect on both sides of the ball to help the Bucks win this one. Combined with Giannis, who returned to action tonight, they combined for 51 of the Bucks' 115 points. We're going to break down all the action from the game, plus some Dairy Bird love coming up on today's episode of Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis. You can catch me weekly on the Technical Foul Podcast as well as the Pack a Day Podcast. You can also catch me on Cheesehead TV's Carry the G and MKE during the NFL season. It's just me today running solo for the Friday show, but I truly do appreciate you for tuning in. And thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, again, the Bucks did win tonight, beat the Nets 115-108. It was a great first half for the Bucks. I mean, they went into halftime up 60 to 44. It's one of those games where you're like, dang, second night of a back-to-back, these guys are looking good. They're looking focused. They're looking locked in. Here comes the second half, and things get real sloppy and lackadaisical for the Bucks. The Nets were able to make it a game, but the Bucks were able to close it out in the fourth. In his post-game presser, I thought it was really funny. Doc Rivers was asked, I believe by Eric Name, friend of the pod from The Athletic. Eric Name was asking a question, just mentioning he was trying to get an AJ Green point, and he mentioned how the Bucks were outscored 23-11 early in the third quarter, and he couldn't even finish his question. Like, Doc just kind of cut him off and was like, we didn't play well at the beginning of the third. We came out kind of flat, didn't play with any pace in the first half. The ball was hopping. It was beautiful. Then we kind of went back to that old hold the ball, no movement style, which we're talented enough to get away with, but it's not the way you're going to win in the long run. And we had to play ourselves through that. And I thought we did. Now, Doc pointing out the fact that we are talented enough to get away with it, but that's not the way you're going to win in the long run. That stood out to me because that's something that we were hearing a little bit with Adrian Griffin, where the team was like, we're winning on talent a lot of times, but we need a little bit more structure around us. And that's a common refrain that you hear with this team as well, where the times when the game slows down for the Bucks, when it seems like the ball can't find the hoop for the Bucks, when things start getting shaky on defense for the Bucks. If you ask Doc, it normally comes back to how that offense looks. And if they're moving the ball and playing basketball the right way, things are going to be better for them because it's more likely for, the shot to fall. It's more likely that you're not going to have to be continuously just getting back on defense rather than making them take the ball out the hoop and get into their half court offense. So you don't want to make it any easier on the opposing team. And sometimes the Bucks do that, as Doc admitted. Like, we got a lot of talent, which sometimes that can be a problem because you're not going to win long term that way. But a way that you can win long term is if Dame is playing the way we have been seeing Dame play. Like, Dame time was real, and we've seen Dame time. We've seen Dame in the clutch throughout the season. But tonight it wasn't Dame time with just offense. It was Dame time with the defense in the fourth quarter as well. So I feel like starting with Dame's performance is a great place to start on this show, right? Dame finished with 30 points. He had 13 of those points in the fourth quarter. He shot 50% from the field overall, including 45% from three. This is the third straight 30-point game for Dame. And according to our good friend Justin Garcia, co-host of Locked On Bucks, he tweeted after the game, the Bucks are now 23-1 this season in games where Damian Lillard shoots 50% or better. Of course, that one loss just came against the Boston Celtics. But again, it's a credit to how much Dame means to this team and his offense. Dame was mentioned after the game. He said, as the season goes on, I just try to be in attack mode more and more. As I settle in and realize that's what our team needs, I'm trying to do it more and more. And you saw that. You saw him get aggressive as the game went on. And he's somebody who has to adjust, right? There were times earlier in the season where we saw him get to the free throw line a lot. And yet, and still, we thought, hey, I feel like he get there more. Like the refs are not calling some of these fouls that I think should be fouls that lead to Dame heading to the line. And we saw it in this game early on. He's driving, looking for contact, trying to get that foul, and it's not coming. And it's been talked about that a point of emphasis for the refs is not calling as many of those types of fouls. Dame mentioned that himself as well. He said, quote, lately the refs have been calling the game a little bit differently. The minimal contact plays that they haven't been calling a lot. And when you're on offense, you're like, that's a foul. But on defense, you also know that they're not going to let you get away with fouls, but they're going to allow you to be a little bit more physical, end quote. And you saw that with Dame in the fourth quarter. 2 key steals down the stretch for Dame. Both led to Bucks baskets. And we don't normally see Dame emote, right? Even the Dame time celebration, it's pretty mild. It's normally straight face, just a tap of the wrist. But after that first steal, he's going on the fast break. He sees his guys sprinting with him. He mentioned the fact that they were tired, second night of a back-to-back, but he sees guys running with him. Kicks it to Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder sees Giannis streaking down the middle, passes it back. Giannis goes up and one. Big play. And you see Dame like screaming, really emoting, like flexing down, like, yes, just into the game. You don't normally see that from Dame. He's normally very stoic when he plays. Even when he's playing well, he'll hit a clean step back, side step 3 and look just straight face. But after that, still, you really saw him emote. And he mentioned the fact that, hey, it doesn't matter who we playing against. These are winning plays. And when you're making winning plays, like it feels good to be doing that. Like this is what you need to do to win games. And when you're doing it, I got excited about it pretty much. And he also mentioned the fact that, until he got to the league, he always guarded the other team's best player, right? And then when he got or before he got to the league, he guarded the team's best player. But when he got to the league, things changed. And he mentioned that this season has been an opportunity to show that when it comes down to it, quote, I can get it done on this side of the floor too. And that effort, that hustle from Dame, listen, when I was thinking about Dame and thinking about the trade-off between him and Drew, this is not what I was thinking. Like, I'm not going to say I thought Dame was a cone on defense or anything like that. But what I will say is I didn't know that his hands were this quick. When he is locked into playing defense, like he can hang. He can hang. And that's what you need. You want all guys connected. So you don't want him to be a weak spot. And he's going to be tried. He's going to be tested. And I'm sure he knows that. So him being up for the task of playing defense is a welcome sign. But another welcome sign was the return of Giannis. I did not know if he was going to go today. He missed the last couple of games with the hamstring soreness, the tightness. And he mentioned himself, hamstrings and calves you don't want to play around with because those are the type of injuries that can linger and turn into something more. So he made his return today. There was no Chris Middleton today, which we expected. Second night of a back-to-back. Chris hasn't played many back-to-backs this season as it is, so didn't expect him tonight, but we did get Giannis. And seeing Giannis on the court is always a treat. So let's talk a little bit more about what we saw from Giannis on the court and how he was also able to help spark the Bucks to victory during today's game right after this. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. And it is so dope because you don't have to worry about battling against thousands of other players, right? That normally includes various pros and sharks, and you ain't got to deal with all that because with Prize Picks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 different player stat projections, and then you watch the winnings roll in. Demons and Goblins are the newest and the most exciting way to play at Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins will get you different payouts, and you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the first half and does not return in the second, the player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays alive. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Time is valuable. So we truly appreciate you for tuning in to Locked On Bucks every day. A special shout outs to those everydayers who be checking in with Locked On Bucks Monday through Friday. Appreciate that, especially those in the YouTube comments. For the most part, it stays respectful with some good conversation. So it's always fun interacting with that. But just a quick question for you. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Sometimes you like to have the sports background noise on in the background. I know. But do you find yourself having to turn down the volume with all that shouting on those two channels? Then you need to make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day, bringing you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. So make sure y'all check that out. All right. Giannis back. Like I said, didn't know if he would go today. I didn't know if he would go today. And I did think that he looked pretty gassed by the end of the game. It was a moment in the fourth quarter where the Nets had just scored and the Bucks are inbounding the ball. Giannis is just standing in the backcourt with his hands on his knees bent over. He didn't even make it over half court, actually. And Doc talked about that after the game. He said, I thought Giannis got a little tired at the end. I used that timeout with 2:04 left because of that. Wanted to save it, to be honest, but I asked if he needed one, and he did, so I used it. So Giannis was tired. First game back after a little bit, got to get your legs back underneath you. And I had some concerns about him. And actually, I had some concerns about Bobby Portis at times during this game as well, because he left the game on two separate occasions. And in the last time we saw him leave, it was after he got a block. And he kind of just looked a little out of it. Bobby didn't have the greatest offensive game today, but he was a crucial part for the Bucks rotation down the stretch in the second half. And even just to close the game out defensively for the team when the Bucks went small without Brook Lopez on the court to close the game. Some valuable minutes. So I hope Bobby is all right as well. I believe he is the only Bucks player who has played every game so far this season. So I'm sure he's feeling a little fatigued. So I hope that he is all right. Back to Giannis, though. Giannis shot 47% from the field tonight, 50% from three. The three-point shooting lives for Giannis. 1 or 2, of course, low volume, but hey, he knocked down 1 of 2, so 50%. Shooting 47% from the field, not the normal 60, 65% we've been seeing from him in this historic season, but still, first game back, a good game for him. And it was nice to see him back because we've talked about it, right? Him and Dame need to continue to get more reps together, continue to get used to playing with one another. And I mean, you look at the first quarter. The first, I believe, 2 turnovers of the game were from Dame and from Giannis, both of them trying to find each other. Dame trying to find Giannis on a lob, if my memory serves me right, and Giannis trying to find Dame in the corner with a little pocket pass, but just timing wasn't right. So again, they need the reps. And down the stretch, you saw them pull it out. But before we even get to the fourth quarter and what Giannis did there, it got chippy in the third, right? Giannis went up for that lob that Brook threw to him, and Dennis Schroeder just pushes him out the air. Didn't try to even help him up, which earlier in the game, Giannis fouled Schroeder pretty hard. He came behind him, kind of smacked, tried to reach over, kind of hit him side the head a little bit on the shoulder. And he tried to help Dennis up. Dennis, of course, didn't accept it. Whatever. I understand that. Wait for your teammate if you want to. And later on in the game, he gets Giannis, quote unquote, back, one could say. And he's standing next to Giannis, and Giannis is just sitting on the ground. And Dennis doesn't even try to help him get up at all. Next thing you know, here comes Jay Crowder. Gets up in his face. what's the word pretty much. And then you see Giannis get up. He leads with his forehead into Dennis Schroeder. And, they start changing some words, gets broken up, of course. At the end of it all, Giannis gets a tech, Jay gets a tech, then Snyder gets a tech. But shout out to Jay for coming to the defense of his teammate. Like Doc has mentioned that this team has 3 dogs on it, 3 instigators. We know 2 off top, Pat Bev, Bobby Portis, that's the reputation that they have. But he also threw Jay Crowder in that mix, just saying like Jay is one of those dudes as well. And you saw it. He comes, he gets his teammates back. You love to see it. And it was interesting at that point in the game too, because when that tech happened, it was 6:49 remaining in the third quarter, right? The score was Bucks were up 67-59 when Cam Johnson made the technical free throw. After the tech, the Bucks had a quick turnover. The Nets went down, got a dunk. And at that point, with that dunk after the tech, it was a 17-7 Nets run in that quarter. From that point forward, the Bucks flipped it, finished the quarter on a 16-8 run of their own to go into the fourth, back up double digits after they lost that lead throughout the third quarter. You head into the fourth up 81-69, a really crucial point in the game when that tech happened. Like Doc said, in the third, they got a little lackadaisical. They were holding the ball. It wasn't moving. And then they had to fight through that, play their way through that. And they did. Found a way to win. Come fourth quarter, I mentioned the fact Dame had 13 in the fourth. Here comes Giannis. He had 8 points in the fourth. Some key buckets. I mentioned the steal that led to the Giannis and 1. So him and Dame combined for 21 of the Bucks' 34 fourth quarter points. In total, the two of them combined for 51 of the Bucks' 115 points. Plus, Dame had 12 assists. Giannis had 5 assists of his own. Like, they were moving the ball. They were setting the tone, and that's what you need to see from this team. You want to see them do that with Chris Middleton back in the mix, and it feels like we're finally getting closer to that. Finally getting closer to seeing all of them playing together under Doc. We haven't had much of that yet, but I mentioned the fact that between Giannis and Dame, that's 17 assists. There were 5 total Bucks players that scored in double figures tonight. Talked about Dame, talked about Giannis, got to talk about those other 3 guys, including AJ Green, Mr. Derry Bird, and why that man needs to be playing more minutes. That's coming up next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Let me get a sip of water here real quick. When you're by yourself, it's a lot of talking. Okay. Talked about Dame. We talked about Giannis. Got to talk about some of the other guys who made an impact in the game on the scoreboard. The other 3 guys that were in double-digit scoring for the Bucks. Brook Lopez, he had 17 points, 7-9 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. Really big first half from Brook. He had 15 points in the first half, of course, meaning he only scored 2 points in the second half. But that first half for Brook, getting touches in the paint, that's a complaint that I've had at times where it's like I want to see Brook Lopez playing bigger. I want to see Brook Lopez playing like the 7-footer that he is, more post touches. And you saw it was a point that the Bucks were making to try to get him the ball in the post, especially when they saw a mismatch, which you were going to see a lot of in this game because the Nets are a smaller team, right? And he was getting touches in the paint. He was also knocking down some really deep threes. Like, it was a pretty good Brook game. I cannot front. Shout out to him for this one. You had AJ Green again showing that he can be a valuable member of the rotation. Like, he can do it. We're saying it again. He can affect the game with his shooting, which is what we knew about AJ Green. We knew that he was a shooter. After the game, he mentioned that, quote, "My job is kind of easy. I just have to find space. My teammates attract so much attention. They're the ones that really make the plays, and I just let it fly. They trust when I shoot it, so just try and shoot it with confidence and live with the result," end quote. And you saw that tonight big time, okay? He went on a 9-0 run by himself in the second quarter. He had a corner three. Cam had a hand in his face. Didn't really matter. That put him up to 100 career threes with the Bucks. Then again, came down like on a transition bucket off of a Nets miss. He wasn't even that wide open. He just saw a sliver of space pulled up from the Fiserv logo. Deep three. Then they leave AJ open in the corner for another three. That made it 3 straight threes for AJ in that moment, his own personal 9-0 run. And it was crazy to see him that open for the third three because Bobby Portis had a mismatch on the post. You know, he had Dennis Schroeder on him, so they got him the ball. The defense collapsed. Here goes an open AJ, and he took advantage of that opportunity. He knocked down 2 more threes in the second half when it seemed like the Bucks really needed the momentum going, which is what I think Eric Name was getting ready to ask in his question before Doc cut him off. In addition to the shooting, though, what's really stood out to me and what you saw again from him was just the hustle plays, the little things. He was asked post-game, like, what were Doc's instructions for you when he took over? Like, what was he looking for you as a player? And AJ said that Doc told him, quote, "Just shoot it when I'm open, let it fly and compete defensively. Do the little things that add value and go into winning. Try to pride myself on those things because those are things you can control regardless of if you get shots or if they go in or not," end quote. And you saw that tonight. Grabbed a big offensive rebound in the second quarter. Bucks weren't able to get points out of it, but you saw him going for it. You saw him diving on the floor. Bobby Portis knocked the ball loose, poked it free. To secure the steal for the Bucks, he's diving on the floor, throwing the ball back into play. Those little things, those are winning plays. That's how you continue to earn more minutes. And after the game, Doc was asked about AJ, and he said that, quote, "Him and PC, Pat Connaughton, are probably the 2 best guys at moving without the ball. And that helps the offense at times. I do think we need to get Malik some more movement stuff. A lot of his stuff is catch and shoot. We've been talking about putting him and Malik together and running some actions because I do think they can create an offense with their ability to shoot the ball and move without the ball." I found that interesting too. Again, he credits AJ's ability to move off the ball. Like, that's a big piece of it. And he mentioned that he wants to get Malik in more movement as well. Against the Celtics, Malik Beasley only had 2 shots at halftime, right? In today's game against the Nets, he surpassed that in the first quarter. Like, he was getting his shots up. Now, he didn't finish with the most effective game today from 3. He was only 2 of 7 from 3, 5 of 10 from the field as a whole. But the idea of getting him some more movement in him, and also Doc just saying, I want to run more actions with Malik and AJ together, makes it sound like we're going to continue to see some AJ Green minutes because he has shown how he can be a valuable contributor to this team. You love to see that. I love to hear that. I said it, I think it was last week when I did the solo pod. I'm all in on AJ Green getting the minutes. I'm all in. 15 a night at least. I want it. AJ Green, I think, has earned that at this point in the season. And if this is what Doc's talking about trying to find ways to get more plays with him and Malik doing some actions off ball, I can't wait to see what that looks like because the 2 of them have the ability to really stretch the floor and knock down those open shots that they're going to get from the gravity that Giannis and Dame create. So I loved to hear that. Now, some folks might say, as we wrap up here, it's the Nets. Y'all barely beat the Nets. Shouldn't be proud of that. But hey, listen, with this win, the Bucks have now swept the season series against the Nets. It was only 3 matchups between these 2 teams. And if you look at the history of the series so far this season, it's been weird, right? It's been really weird. Bucks won that first game by 4. That's the game that Cam Thomas had 45 in, his season high. I was a little worried that Cam might pop again for another big night, but wasn't like another 45-point night for him. Like he had 8 of 17 from the field, 21 points, negative -6 on the night. It's okay. You did all right with that. Second game, Bucks Nets this season. That's the game where the Bucks won big. It was 144-122 to end the game. And that was the really weird game because it was the second night of a back-to-back for the Nets. And they went into that game shorthanded. And then the normal starters who they did have in the game and were active didn't really play too many minutes. It was a really strange game with mostly bench Nets guys in there. So a weird season series between the two. And then this night, Bucks, second night of a back-to-back. Fatigue did play a part in it. The guys were a little bit tired, but they were able to find a way to win. And that's what they need to continue stacking wins. The Bucks are now 9-3 on the season on the second night of a back-to-back. So that's something that they have been consistent with so far this season. And with this win, the Bucks are now 1.5 games up on the Cavaliers for the 2 seed in the East. And when you look at who the Cavs have next, well, the Bucks might be able to extend this lead a little bit with, as we know, as we come down the final stretch of these games here. So the Cavs have the Timberwolves Friday, and then they have the Heat, who they just lost to on Sunday. The Bucks play again on Sunday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's going to be a tough game. But if we get 2 Cavs losses and the Bucks win on Sunday, then the Bucks could be up 3 games on the Cavs for that 2 spot with just a few more games remaining, 10, 11 games remaining. So something to keep an eye on this weekend as you're watching the scoreboard, since the Bucks don't play again until Sunday. So if you're a March Madness fan, could be a time to watch. I'm a Marquette grad, Marquette alum. I will be tuned into Marquette in the March Madness since there's no Bucks basketball on Friday. So all that being said, that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Bucks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Me running solo today. As Jay Uso would say, if you're a wrestling fan, it was just me, Uso. But Bucks got to win. We go into the weekend with the win. I am happy with that. And I cannot wait to see how the Bucks and the Thunder match up. Hopefully, next time we come back to you on Locked On Bucks, it's after another Bucks win. But regardless of such, whether it's a win or a loss, Locked On Bucks will be back and breaking down the action. So that'll do it for myself. Hope you have a good weekend, y'all. Take care.